Thomas Edison. I mean, that name is basically synonymous with invention, right? We're talking about a guy with over 1,000 patents. He didn't just invent a few products, you could argue he practically invented the modern world as we know it. So, the big question is, how did one person achieve so much? Well, let's dive in, because we're about to distill the core principles right from the mind of this absolute genius. And this quote, wow, it's probably his most famous, and for good reason. It is the key to everything. This isn't just some clever thing to say, it's a complete operating system for how to achieve anything. It's this powerful idea that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's actually a fundamental, necessary part of the process. And that brings us right to our first major idea, completely shattering the myth of failure. See, for Edison, the things we call setbacks or mistakes, well, to him, they were just essential steps forward. Just let that number sink in for a second. 10,000. That's how many prototypes for the light bulb didn't work. I mean, let's be real. Most of us would give up after 10 tries, maybe 20 if we're feeling really persistent. This number isn't about failure at all. It's a monument to his incredible process of elimination. This really visualizes Edison's whole mindset perfectly. You know, where most of us see failure as an endpoint, like hitting a brick wall, he saw it as a data point. It wasn't this big, scary thing to avoid. It was something you could actually learn from. Each attempt that fizzled out was just a result. It simply told him, okay, that's not the answer, which meant he was one step closer to finding the one that was. So, here's the bottom line. The only true failure is just giving up. Edison was convinced that so many people throw in the towel when they are right on the edge of a breakthrough. So the real secret, the game changer, is developing that habit of always trying just one more time. Okay, so if persistence is the fuel, then what's the engine? What's actually driving this whole thing forward? For Edison, it was incredibly simple. Relentless, focused, hard work. That was the real engine behind his legendary innovation. And this visualizes his famous formula so well. We all love that myth of the genius getting struck by a lightning bolt of inspiration, right? Well, Edison basically tells us that's just 1% of the story. The other 99%, the huge majority of what makes success happen, is just pure perspiration. It's the grind, it's the work. And he broke it down even further into these 3 simple, powerful pillars. You need the hard work to actually put in the hours. You need the persistence we just talked about to get you through all those attempts that don't work. And you need good old-fashioned common sense to make sure all that effort is actually pointed in a practical, useful direction. Now, at first glance, this might sound like a complete contradiction, but it's actually the master key to his entire work ethic. Think about it. How do you sustain 99% perspiration without burning out? Well, you have to find it fun. When you're that passionate about what you're doing, all that intense effort, it stops feeling like a chore. It just feels like play. All right, so we've got the mindset and the work ethic covered, but how did he actually translate all of that into tangible results? This next part is all about Edison's practical, nuts and bolts method for turning a great idea into something real. This right here was Edison's mantra. He had way more respect for a person with one single idea that they actually built and made real than for someone with 1,000 brilliant ideas that just stayed in their head. For him, execution is absolutely everything. And this lays out his actual method. It wasn't magic, it was a system. Before he ever tried to invent something new, he would just completely immerse himself in the subject. He'd study the current version inside out, he'd go talk to every single person who had experience with it, and then he'd read literally everything ever written about it. He built all of his innovation on top of a rock-solid foundation of knowledge. And this part is absolutely crucial. Edison wasn't just inventing for the sake of inventing. He was a deeply practical innovator. For him, the ultimate test of an invention's worth was simple. Would people actually use it? Would they buy it? A sale wasn't about the money. It was what he called commercial proof that his invention solved a real problem for real people. Usefulness was the ultimate goal. Okay, so we've seen his process, we've seen his work ethic, but what about the mind that powered it all? Let's dive into the mental models, the ways of thinking that allowed Edison to see opportunities where literally everyone else saw nothing. This is such a powerful idea. Progress doesn't come from being satisfied. Edison believed that to move forward, you have to be fundamentally discontent with the way things are right now. You've got to be constantly looking at the world around you and thinking there has to be a better way to do this. That feeling, that constructive dissatisfaction, that's the real spark for all innovation. And well, Edison had a pretty blunt and honestly unforgettable take on the act of thinking. His breakdown here suggests that very, very few people engage in real, rigorous thought. He believed most people would literally rather do anything else. It's a bit of a joke, but it's also a serious reminder of the massive advantage you gain just by committing to the hard work of actually thinking. So, how did he fuel all that thinking? He described himself as a sponge, just constantly absorbing information, ideas, and concepts from every possible source imaginable. He really understood that the big breakthroughs often happen when you connect ideas from completely unrelated fields. And finally, let's see how these powerful principles didn't just stay in the workshop. Edison applied his inventor's mindset to his entire life. We're talking everything from health and time management to his views on legacy. Just take a look at these. They really show how broad his thinking was. He understood that time is the one asset you can never get back. He was talking about nutrition being the future of medicine, way, way ahead of his time. He saw the body's main job as just carrying the brain around. And maybe most importantly, he believed that your whole life is a place for learning. It never stops. And this quote, this is the one that really ties it all together. It's such a profound observation on human potential. Edison truly believed that every single one of us has this deep reservoir of capability that we almost never tap into, that most of us are living our lives far below our actual potential. So, the final question is really for you. What would happen if we actually did it? What if you redefined failure, committed to the hard work, and applied these exact same principles, not just to some side project, but to your entire life? What could you build? Who could you become? You might just astonish yourself.